There are moments when people find themselves caught in patterns they didn't even realise they were living. Imagine just for a moment that every conversation, every interaction is like a dance. Some people lead with confidence, others follow with grace. And then there are those who step aside, smoothing the floor for everyone else, ensuring there's no discomfort, no conflict. These people take on the role of the placater. Not consciously, of course. It's automatic, like a well-worn path they've walked for so long. They don't even notice anymore. And perhaps you've seen this before, or maybe you've felt it, where the words, "it's okay, I'll do whatever you want," or "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you," they flow out so naturally it feels easier, safer, just to keep the peace. Because there's a belief, quietly guiding that voice, whispering, "if I keep everyone happy, I'll be safe." But here's the thing, that belief, that stance, it served a purpose once, it protected, it soothed. It made the world feel a little less dangerous, yet over time it became a trap. A place where the placater forgets how powerful it is to want, to express, to choose. And as you begin to notice this pattern, whether in yourself or others, it's if a light gently turns on in a room you hadn't seen before, and you start to recognise the small, subtle signs, the constant apologies, the quick agreements, the way shoulders fold inward, voices soften, and eye contact drifts away. When you notice it, something changes, because with awareness comes possibility. Now just imagine for a moment, there's a different way to dance in every conversation, a way that honours everyone, including the placater. And maybe you're starting to wonder how that transformation could unfold so naturally, so quietly, like stepping into a warm, calming breeze that allows all the old patterns to loosen, unwind and soften, creating space for something new. Because the placater is not weak. No, quite the opposite. Beneath that stance is a deep strength, an ability to feel, to care and connect. What's missing is permission. The permission to take up space, to express needs, and to trust that being honest doesn't mean being heard. Notice how that feels. What if it was safe to say, "here is what I want"? It feels natural to think, "my voice matters just as much as anyone else's." Instead of fearing conflict, you saw it as an opportunity to connect more deeply. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman named Sarah, always the peacekeeper at work. Whenever tension arose, Sarah smoothed it over. She apologised when no apology was needed. She agreed when she didn't agree. And at first it seemed like the best strategy, until one day a colleague turned to her and asked, "What do you think?" And in that moment Sarah froze. She realised she didn't know how to answer, because she hadn't asked herself that question in years. What do I think? She felt the old urge to deflect, to apologise, to say, "Oh, whatever you want is fine." But instead, something inside her paused just for a moment. She felt her feet on the ground, took a breath and said, "I think we should try it this way." The room didn't crumble. The world didn't end. In fact, something beautiful happened. Her colleague smiled and said, "I hadn't thought of that. Great idea." And maybe you're already starting to realise how powerful that can be. How small shifts can create ripples. And those ripples become waves of change. When you recognise the placater's stance, it's not about judgment, it's about understanding. About gently guiding that person or yourself towards the belief that it's safe to speak up. That you belong in every conversation. And that what you want is important too. And you can help someone step out of that stance with just a few simple words. What's important to you? I want to hear your thoughts. Your voice matters here. Even a small question can unlock that door. When it does, the possibilities expand. So picture a time in the future, near or far, when you notice someone slipping into that old habit of pleasing, smoothing, apologising. You'll see it, and you know exactly what to do. You'll offer them space, gently nudging them towards their strength, their truth, because now you know how powerful that transformation can be. And in those moments, something magical happens. The placater becomes something new. Someone who can care without sacrificing, who can connect without shrinking. And now just let that idea settle deeply, knowing it will continue to grow and unfold in the days ahead, naturally, easily, just like planting a seed and trusting it'll bloom. Because it will. And isn't it interesting how some people, they live their lives as if they're walking on thin ice, carefully, cautiously, quietly. Each step measured, not for where they want to go, or how to avoid cracking the surface. They learn somewhere along the way. The safest path is the one that pleases others, calms the waters and keeps the peace. They become the peacemaker, the fixer, the harmonizer. Always agreeing, always smoothing over discomfort, always saying, I'm fine, when maybe, just maybe, they're not. But here's the secret that no one tells you at first. That old strategy, it works until it doesn't. You see, there's a hidden cost to the placater's stance, because while it feels safe to blend in, to bend, to apologise, it quietly erodes something deeper, piece by piece, moment by moment. The placater forgets their wants and needs were ever important to begin with. But here's the beauty of patterns. Once you notice them, you can change them. And imagine for a moment what it would be like to step into a new pattern, where harmony doesn't mean silence, and connection doesn't require self-sacrifice. Imagine discovering that you can care deeply about others and speak your truth at the same time. You can. Because underneath the surface, beneath all those apologies, lies a powerful truth. The placater is not weak. They're deeply intuitive, empathic and strong. They just forgot. Now let's explore something even more interesting. What if every time you notice someone saying, I'll do whatever you want, or I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you, you saw it not as a submission but as a doorway into possibility, because that's what it is. A doorway that opens the moment that they remember their voice, their feeling, their choices. They're just as valuable as anyone else's. And with every small shift, every time they pause before apologising, every time they say, actually, here's what I think, they begin to reclaim that power. Now imagine how that might feel, to watch someone step back into their own strength, or perhaps to feel yourself doing it. Not all at once, but bit by bit, moment by moment, as if waking up from a long dream and realising you've always had everything you needed inside you. Because isn't that how change happens? Slowly at first, then all at once. And here's something else. The purpose of the placater stance, it isn't to trap someone, it's to teach them. To teach them how deeply they care. To teach them that vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. To teach them that sometimes the greatest gift you can give others is your truth, not your agreement. And every time they learn that lesson, something shifts. Every time they practice saying, here is what I want, they build a new pattern, a pattern rooted not in fear but in trust. Trust that they're enough. Trust that their voice matters. Trust they can stand in their truth and still be loved. And isn't it amazing how the mind can learn so quickly once it's ready? Here's a story for you. There was once a man named Tom, always the first to apologise, the first to agree, the first to back down. He wore the placater stance like an old comfortable coat. It kept him warm, safe, protected, until one day something changed. He found himself in a meeting at work. Once again, smoothing over conflict, once again deflecting attention, but this time a colleague asked him a question that he wasn't prepared for. What do you think? For the first time he paused. He could feel the old response rising, ready to take over. The apology, the agreement. But something inside shifted and he realised he had a choice. So he took a breath, felt his feet on the ground and said, here's what I think. In that moment something extraordinary happened, not outside him but within him. He felt solid, grounded, seen. And maybe now you're starting to imagine how that kind of change could unfold naturally in your own life, or in someone else's. You might notice, in the smallest way at first, a little more confidence, a little more clarity, a little less apologising for things that don't need an apology. And with each small shift, you create a ripple, and those ripples grow. turning into waves of change that carry you towards something new, something stronger, something more true. Because here's the truth. The placater doesn't need to be fixed. They just need to remember their voice, remember their worth, remember that harmony is not the absence of conflict, but it's the presence of truth. And now imagine what it would be like to live from this place of truth every day, to speak, to act, to move through the world, with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are enough, to trust deeply and fully that your needs are just as valid as anyone else's. Because the more you imagine it, the more it becomes real. The more real it becomes, the more natural it feels. And isn't it amazing how this can all happen? And as these ideas continue to settle and grow naturally and effortlessly, you might already begin to notice just how easy these changes begin to unfold in the days and weeks to come, bit by bit, step by step, until one day you realise you've been dancing a completely different dance all along. And isn't it curious how life is so much like a dance? Some dances feel light and joyful, every step flowing with ease and freedom. But then, to those other dances, the ones we learned long ago, without even realising it. The steps of the placater, they're careful and cautious, moving in response to the rhythm of others, adjusting, adapting, apologising, ensuring the dance remains smooth, but rarely choosing the music. Deep inside, there's always been another dancer waiting to take the lead, waiting to move differently. Because you see, it's not about changing who you are, it's about discovering the fullness of who you've always been. That part of you that knows how to listen, how to care deeply, but also knows when to speak clearly and firmly. The part of you that always knows how to set boundaries with love, to express your truth with confidence, and to trust that being real is far more powerful than being polite. As you listen to these words, it's so easy, isn't it, to begin to feel that part waking up, like a seed that's been waiting for just the right moment to grow, because it knows now is the time. And as you might notice, even now a new kind of energy is starting to grow, like a warmth in your chest or a strength in your feet. And each time you breathe in, you can allow that feeling to expand, that feeling of knowing you're strong, knowing you're worthy, knowing you can speak your truth and still be loved. In fact, each time you hear the words, what do you think? Whether from someone else or from within yourself, you can let it remind you of that strength, a powerful reminder to pause, take a breath, and speak from the deeper place of truth. Now imagine moving through your day, seeing yourself in situations where you might once have fallen into the old dance, but this time something's different. Instead of agreeing out of habit, you pause. Instead of apologising unnecessarily, you breathe. Instead of saying whatever you want, you say, here is what I want. Notice how natural it feels. Notice how good it feels. And with each new situation, it becomes easier and easier. You feel clearer, stronger, more grounded. In a conversation with a friend, they ask, where do you want to eat? Without hesitation, you'd say, I'd love sushi, because you trust your opinion matters. At work, in a meeting, a question arises, and instead of deferring, you speak your truth clearly and confidently. The words flow effortlessly, because you know what you have to say is valuable. In your relationships, you notice how much deeper your connections become when you allow yourself to show up fully. Not just the parts that are agreeable, but the whole honest, real you. And now, let's talk about the different parts within you. Because there's a part that learned the placater stance for a reason. It wanted to keep you safe, didn't it? To protect you from conflict, rejection, or pain. And you can thank that part of you for doing its best, for carrying that responsibility all this time. But there's also another part, one that's been waiting patiently, quietly to step forward. The part of you that knows how to be strong and kind at the same time. The part that can say yes when it means yes, and no when it means no, and feel completely at peace either way. And imagine what might happen when these parts begin to work together, each bringing its strength, each supporting the other, because that is when the real magic happens. The part that once felt like it had to placate now realises it can choose how to respond. It can speak with warmth, but also with clarity. It can listen deeply, but also set boundaries. It can honour others without abandoning itself. As those parts integrate, aligning into one harmonious whole, you might begin to feel a powerful shift, a sense of balance, ease and strength settling in, naturally and effortlessly. And perhaps it helps to imagine yourself as a tree with deep, strong roots that hold you steady, no matter how the wind blows. You've always had these roots. They've been growing quietly beneath the surface, anchoring you, keeping you grounded. But now the branches, they can stretch higher, reaching towards the sky, no longer bending and twisting to please every breeze, but standing tall and steady, flexible yet firm. The wind may come, and you can sway, but you don't break, because you've grown beyond that. You've grown into a new kind of strength, one that's rooted in authenticity and truth, in the quiet knowing that you're enough, always have been and always will be. And it's funny how these changes, they can happen so naturally. You don't even need to think about them, because the mind learns quickly. And once it's ready, the old patterns, they just start to fade away. You might even notice over the coming days and weeks how your words change, how your energy shifts, how situations that once felt challenging, they now feel easy, even enjoyable. You might even notice how your confidence grows, how your voice strengthens, how you begin to feel more like yourself, the true you, the whole you. And every time you speak your truth, it reinforces that strength. Every time you choose your own path, it feels more natural. Every time you say, here's what I think, you step further into that new way of being. Because this is who you are now. So you've always been, really. And it's so good to finally remember.